Hi, today we're going to talk about civil communications. We hear a lot about civility, about civil communications, and I thought we'd take a moment to just discuss what that means. What is civil communication? And I'm going to do a three-part series here, all fairly brief videos. I want to talk about civility, first of all. And then, unlike in my second video, do an assessment of where we're currently at. And I think we can all agree it's not particularly civil. And then in the third video, talk about what we can do about it. I got interested in this topic around 20 years ago when I was writing my PhD dissertation. My PhD dissertation was on civility, specifically civility in Supreme Court argumentation. And I wanted to demonstrate that civility was on the decline. And I thought, well, what better place to start with in one of the most revered institutions in the country, that being at that time the Supreme Court, where every session started with every member shaking the hand of another. But I was able to show over a roughly 20-year period that the written opinions, the words that were used, the arguments, were not as civil as they were in one time. So I've been very interested in the topic, and I've done a decent amount of research trying to understand how civility is viewed by others. So I wanted in this video just share some of my favorite perspectives on civility to give us a little better understanding of what it means. Uh, Professor Calhoun she's a philosophy professor at Arizona State. She says that civility always involves a display of respect, tolerance, and considerateness. It's essentially the communicative equivalent of moral conduct. So it's very closely associated with how we act, how we behave, etc. Amy Gutman and Dennis Thompson say that mutual respect is the core value that drives accommodation, reciprocity, and deliberation in a democracy. I love what Stephen Cotter had to say. Stephen said, civility not only requires respect, but it also requires us to listen to others with the open mind, with the understanding that it's possible that they may offer something to us that we may perceive as right and us being wrong. And a final, what I would call a contemporary perspective, comes from Mark Kingwell. And he said that civility is the best route to vigorous debate in a democracy. It gives us citizens a way of facing the possibility of political compromise with more confidence and resolve. And he said, when we don't demonstrate civility, we run a risk that public attitudes toward individuals and institutions will be compromised. These contemporary perspectives, I think, are very similar to some of the historical perspectives. Two time periods that I think are noteworthy. One, if we go back to the ancient Greece and Rome, and if we look at 16th, 17th century England, when there was a lot of study of, in those words, the gentleman, the nobleman, and what it meant to be a noble person at that time. If we would just isolate Cicero, he would argue that we all had to develop what he called mental poise, and that we should avoid exhibitions of passion and uncontrolled reason that wouldn't be viewed favorably by others, and it could jeopardize our critical thinking process. James Cleland, who was a Victorian rhetorician, um, author, he wrote one of the classic books on the nobleman in 1607. And he said that um, we should be able to disagree with others. This is something we should expect of ourselves and we should expect from others. But we should do so with a certain tact. We should do so in a way that allows us to disagree, but we allow the other to save face, so to speak. We allow them to come out of the discussion, the debate, rather unscathed. So these are a couple of the classical and contemporary views of civility. Under all of these is this concept of having mutual respect, viewing civil communication as really a responsibility for engaged members of a democratic society. It's sort of a prerequisite to be an engaged member. This is how you communicate. And if we don't communicate in these ways that demonstrate a respect and we display a civil tongue, then we jeopardize our credibility. We may undermine the credibility of others, and we may do irreparable harm to institutions. So that is the backdrop that I wanted to share with you in this first video. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about our current state. I don't think it's going to be terribly surprising. I think we can start with the assumption is we're just not as civil as we used to be. But let's talk about what are some of the causes for that? Why is that the case? I should also, every once in a while, I guess I'll do a mini ad and say, gee, if you do like some of the videos I'm posting, and I have a whole set of videos in mind, both in terms of communications and workplace issues, and we'll delve into some of the political issues as well. Please subscribe. There's no cost to subscribing, and tell your friends as well. So look forward to coming back with part 2 of what is the current state of civil discourse. Thank you.